Today we're going to talk about making pom-poms with your Susan Bates pom-pom maker. They come in a package with multiple sizes, and we're going to make one using the kind of middle-sized guy. You get 4 parts to each pom-pom maker, one guy with a slotted end and one guy with a normal tab end, and those you would think would slot together like so. But what you're going to actually do is sandwich them together like that. So you've got a tab end and a slotted end, like so. And they've got these little nubbies on the inside that provide you with a little bit of a gap in between. So you'll sandwich those together and take your yarn that you want to use. I've got this lovely sparkly bit. And this is the easiest part. You start at one end and you literally start wrapping. And depending on how poofy and thick and dense you want your pom-pom to be, you will wrap. I usually just wrap until the plastic is covered up. And there's a couple, maybe a layer or 2 of yarn. But if you want a really, really thick, poofy one, you can certainly, you can wrap until, you know, the center hole is almost filled. So it's entirely up to you. We'll wrap, wrap, wrap. And I'll cut this bit out using the magic of editing. Now when you get to a point where you're happy with your wrapping, you can just cut cut that end off and leave it. You know, it might come a little bit loose, but it should kind of stay in place pretty well, so that's totally fine. And we'll let that guy rest while we wrap our other side, which you will do in exactly the same manner as the first one. And now we will have some more magic editing. Now, when you get done with your second one, you can trim that end off. Now, what you'll do is slot these 2 together so the tab end of this one goes into the slot end of this one and vice versa. They should line up relatively well, but can be a touch tricky. There we go. And now this is the fun part. Going in on one end with a pair of very pointy, very sharp scissors. Because these 2 halves of the half donut are separated by those little nubbins, you've got a place to put your scissor tip in and cut this right open. So, having trimmed all the way around, your now recognizable pom-pom has come into existence. What you'll do is grab just a little bit more of the yarn that you were using and put it, slide it into that slot all the way around. Sometimes they can get off a little bit, excuse me, so you have to make sure it goes all the way around through both halves of the donut. And now this is the part that can get a little bit tricky, only because tying a really tight knot is not always the easiest when you can't get right down in there. So what you want to do is just tie a knot, an overhand knot, really tightly in there. And then I usually come back around and this part gets quite fiddly. Try and hold it really tight, because you don't want, if your knot is loose at all, each individual strand is liable to just fall out of your pom-pom. So you want this knot to be really, really tight. And once you're happy with the knot, you can trim those ends off and gently, you don't want to pull anything out of shape, but gently release your pom-pom from its donut. And now here's the part where if you have any tendencies toward perfectionism or stuff like that, you can run into problems because of course you'll want to trim off these super long guys. But your pom-pom is likely to look a little bit shaggy and possibly a little uneven in spots. So you just want to foof it out, make it nice and puffy, and then very conservatively, this is my problem, you want to very conservatively just trim it to a nice shape. What happens to me fairly often is I will be a little too excessive on one side, and the other side will have to be trimmed. Then I'll trim a little too much on the other side, and then pretty soon my lovely giant pom-pom has turned into just a little nubbin of nothing because I trimmed the entire thing into oblivion. So just give it a teensy little, see, I can't even stop what I'm doing. This is terrible. Give it a little haircut, and you've got an awesome pom-pom.